In 1996, when MTV had secured grunge metal artist Alice In Chains to come and film an episode of their upcoming MTV Unplugged series, the band had not performed in nearly 3 years. Layne Staley's noticeable absence from the waves of MTV fuel rumors and speculation that the band may never recover. Once a staple on MTV's Headbangers Ball, the mischievous boy who wore a Speedo to a water park for the humor of his fans has been labeled as just another junkie who wasted their talents on good times. The tension coupled with anticipation are suffocating, as thick and noticeable as humidity on a hot summer day in the swampy Louisiana bayou. The occasion seems almost too good to be true. Alice In Chains is going to break out of their rusty cage and perform for millions of people on international television, and Layne Staley's coming with them? The crowd sits nervously, hands clasped, eagerly awaiting an answer. Will Layne Staley make the performance? And, if so, what state of health will Layne be in? Will he even be able to perform? The evening of the performance has arrived. The crowd and the fans at home will not have to wait long for an answer. The scene opens with Jerry Cantrell alone on stage. Rhythm guitarist, lead guitarist, master harmonizer, the architect behind the Alice In Chains sound. The set list for this night was thought out methodically. Every song put in its proper place to tell a story. The Alice In Chains crew knows that fans eagerly await Layne Staley. They're going to make them wait. Cantrell begins strumming a now familiar melancholic tune from their 1994 album, Jar of Flies. Nutshell. Nutshell was a song that was never released as a single. This should convey to the viewer just how strong of a catalog Alice had at their disposal. To take the stage at the decade's most popular pop venue and begin with a song that was never marketed as a selling point was ballsy. Still, the crowd knew the song and they loved it. It's sad to think that much later, Jerry will dedicate Nutshell to Layne Staley and Mike Starr each time the new set of Alice In Chains performs.
We are Alice In Chains. If you would, light them up for Layne Staley and Mike Starr.
Next appears Mike Inez. He smiles at the crowd as he approaches his seat, abruptly stops and nods to the fans, giving almost a half attempt at a curtsy or a bow, then nervously shakes his hands as if to exercise some of the adrenaline that has built up to this moment. This is a big deal, and everyone knows it. Does Alice In Chains still have what it takes? Jerry gazes over at Mike as he straps on his acoustic bass and adjusts himself on his stool. Mike seems a little nervous. Again, Alice has thrown themselves to the wolves. They've not been on stage for nearly 3 years, and now they're being taped live on the biggest stage of them all, international music television. Jerry gazes over at his friend Mike, sensing his apprehension. He gives Mike a reassuring look while bobbing his head to the rhythm of his guitar as if to say, "It's cool, man. Everything's going to work out just fine." You get a real sense of Jerry's leadership role within the band. He is the big brother within the Alice In Chains ranks. Drummer Sean Keeney and little-known musician-producer Scott Olson take the stage. They quickly take their seats as if to say, "We're ready and willing, let's do this." The crowd lets out an excited yelp, knowing that the show is about to begin. There is only one person missing, and that person has not been seen in years. The woos, the claps, and the hollering die down, and all anyone can muster is a pathetic, nervous clap, unsure if this is it. The rumor mill has not been favorable to Layne's health. The rumor mill meaning the same press that made Layne Staley a star is now trying to tear him down. Would the band announce that the show must go on without Layne? Is this the reason for Scott Olson's position on stage? Fortunately, they did not have to wait long for an answer. Without a second to spare, a tall, wiry figure emerges from the backstage shadows into the silhouette of the candlelit stage. The audience explodes with relief as they unblinkingly watch the scruffy pink-haired singer awkwardly shuffle to the front and center. Sunglasses cover his mascaraed, charcoaled eyes, while long dark sleeves disguise his battle scars, circular remnants of a man at war with himself like pockmarked craters scattered across a war zone. For the first time, Layne Staley seems nervous. As he approaches the microphone, he wrenches his hands. His slight smile seems pained, but turns, if only for a second, to a mischievous grin. Layne does not yet acknowledge the crowd. As if he'd never left, with no verbal or visual cues, he sits and belts out the first line of Nutshell, right on time with the rhythm of Jerry's acoustic guitar. Layne is in his element. The stage is his world, his true home, and although just minutes before he was suffering through agonizing withdrawal, within the hour before the show, Mike Inez's bass tech scores them what they need to get well. Maybe not as much as they wanted, but enough for Layne to break out of his shell and give the best performance of his life. He effortlessly burst from his self-imposed prison. For the next 3 hours, he would give his best performance, his magnum opus, what would become known as the best live acoustic performance in the history of rock and roll, even outselling Nirvana's own Live in New York Unplugged. There is good reason as to why very few bands were ever invited to MTV Unplugged. When the effects pedals are taken, the heavy distortion and feedback stripped away, the drummer asked to play quietly with drum brushes, at the very core of your music better be good songs. Playing Unplugged is the true testament to your band's musicianship and lyrical prowess. You'd be hard-pressed to find any one person, Alice in Chains fan or not, who could listen to these very real, very truthful songs stripped down to their core and that person not be emotionally moved. They describe a man in both recollection of his demons and in turmoil with his present dejection. The listener may wonder if these songs are a call for help, a man fed up with his own self-destruction, or is it a man's acceptance of his own catastrophic fate? Live long enough and you too will know pain. But I do often believe that I have never known pain like Layne Staley knew pain. To be trapped in a vicious cycle, knowing what direction to take to escape this cycle, but never being able to conjure up the will to do so, to open that exit door. That had to be hell. Alice in Chains Unplugged describes a bad dream that the user cannot wake from. Ethereal and true to form, the inhabitants of this nightmare can come anytime they like, but they may never leave. And yet I find, repeating through my head, if I can't be my own, I'd feel better dead. The viewer gets the feeling that the song's lyrics mean more to Layne in this moment than they did when the song was written. There's a morbid beauty to it all. Front and center sits a shell of a man, fragile. You fear a gust of wind might knock him off of his chair and shatter his jaundiced bones, knock out his rotting teeth, leaving his admirers to gather around and watch helplessly as he falls apart and disintegrates into nothing. The whole affair feels more like a funeral than a show. Even still, there is beauty yet to be seen. Like the faded pink color of Layne's blonde curls, the band clings to their instruments for dear life. No matter how dark, how deep, or how cold the waters Alice in Chains has been treading, every member is determined to go down with the ship. Alice in Chains set sail that night, unsure of the band's safety. Whether or not they would steer clear their course and land safely on the other side was anyone's guess. But they stayed true to their craft, orchestrating an artistic expression of love and hate and death. Perhaps the three things in this life that no one can escape. Cantrell sings, "Brother, I know that pain, so don't you run away like you used to do." The message is clear to the audience. This night is a night of reckoning, forgiveness, and a willingness to move forward with no excuses. Hope is fragile, but still, hope remains. Up to this point, Layne has yet to address the crowd. He sits awkwardly, squirming in his chair as if his mind is predisposed on matters unknown to anyone but him alone. Although he does not remove his shades, for the first time, Layne acknowledges the crowd and speaks to the viewers. We've been waiting for this show. We're gonna have a real good time. The upbeat melody of No Excuses breaks the tension in the air. For the first time, the crowd feels a sigh of relief. Everyone relaxes in their chairs as Layne Staley takes off his darkened sunglasses. They say that the eyes are a gateway to the soul, a reflection of one's most inner thoughts and desires. "You can't hide your lion eyes," sang the Eagles in 1975, a one-liner that was as true then as it is now. Layne's eyes reveal a man at war with himself, tired and weary, full of regret. The viewer could be forgiven for thinking maybe Layne had donned mascara at some point over the last 48 hours, then went without a shower this whole time. His bruised and sunken sockets are trademark of a lifestyle too many in the Seattle scene fell victim to. Live by the needle, die by the needle. However, it doesn't take long before a spark of Layne's boyish, mischievous personality floats to the top. "Ah, fuck," Cantrell pipes in, the ultimate wingman, giving Staley the same reassuring nod he gave to Inez in the introduction. "You just get to hear more is all." Staley smacks his forehead while putting his head down. He messed up, and he feels bad about it. It's a little reassurance to the fans that Layne does still care about Alice in Chains and how their performances are perceived. Sludge Factory changes the tone. What was appearing to be a night full of loneliness, depression, and despair has turned to resentment and anger. "You insult me in my house, you're forgiven this time." Next up on the set list for the night was Down in a Hole. This flawless performance can only be described as the most chilling duet in rock and roll history. Listen closely and you will hear a subtle lisp coming from Layne's punished cavity, lending credit to the lyrics. You get the feeling there is no ego coming from Alice. What they sing about is what they've lived through. "I've been guilty of kicking myself in the teeth," sings Layne. Perhaps Layne's acknowledgement that his own self-destructive behavior has caused the downfall of his health and his appearance. Outwardly, you see a shell of a man broken, but inwardly, you feel a beautiful soul that would never lie to you. Why would he? He's already confessed his darkest sins, already laid bare his deepest faults. As Jerry and Scott tune in for Angry Chair, Layne takes a short break, adjusting his stool and puffing on a cigarette. Layne straps on his own acoustic guitar. Jerry and Sean fill in the gap with a country song, and the crowd loves it. Any tension that remained dissipates, and they laugh as Cantrell reveals his country western roots, introduced to him as a little boy by his father, the Rooster. "If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all." One of the bigger hits that Alice is known for, Rooster, goes off without a hitch, but at the very end, Layne nods out, lulled to sleep by Cantrell's harmonizing, but he shoots alive for the next track, "Got Me Wrong." Jerry sings, "Something's got to turn out right," almost as if he's referring to Alice in Chains themselves. And it does. The song is perfect. This particular performance went right in so many ways. Although originally panned by critics, in retrospect, this night will go down in rock and roll history as one of the greatest performances of all time. How in the world did music journalists of the time get it so wrong? Mike takes off with his iconic bass line to Wood, and when Sean Kinney's drumming comes in, it becomes clear why they chose Kinney as Alice in Chains' drummer. His drums are as sharp and crisp as ever, keeping perfectly in time. His nuances, his ghost notes, possibly something underappreciated, maybe something only appreciated by fellow drummers who are listening for them. Sometimes it's the space in between the notes that make the song. Any grunge rock drummer who's used to barreling right down the middle with thunderous beats, who can quiet down to this level and still come across as powerful as ever, is well deserving of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, in my opinion. Although the song Wood does refer to Andy Wood, lead singer of Mother Love Bone, Jerry and Layne have explained in the past that it's not directly about Andy Wood, it's about how judgmental people were when Andy Wood passed. The song is just trying to say, would you rather see me go down or would you rather help me up? It's been proven time and time again that the press loves to see people go down. So the song refers to his situation and how judgmental people can be, but it can be referring to anyone in the same situation that Andy Wood found himself in. Into the flood again, same old trip it was back then. So I made a big mistake, tried to see it once my way. Layne's voice cracks just a little in this one, but it sounds cool, and he quickly recovers. From the very first strum of Cantrell's guitar, Over Now sounds like a song meant to conclude any evening. It's a big sigh of relief. You feel the band come alive, fully awake, possibly for the first time, just glad that they steered clear of any icebergs and safely landed on the other side. They've weathered the storm without too much damage. Yeah, it's over now. Now I can breathe somehow. We pay our debt. Sometime. But that wasn't the last song of the evening. Alice in Chains makes a very bold move. They introduce a brand new song they'd never performed before. The Killer Is Me. Cantrell jokes with the crowd. Wrote a song, wanna hear it? In retrospect, the concluding song of the night feels like a prelude to what would happen afterward. Staley would sink deeper and deeper into depression and addiction, ultimately dramatically shortening his own life by his own hand. In October of 1996, only 6 months after this performance, Layne's fiancée Dimri would die of an overdose. Friends say this is when Layne officially checked out. The very last time original bassist Mike Starr spoke with Staley, Layne told him, "Dimri was here last night. I don't care what you think, I know she was here." As the song ends, Jerry stands. He says thanks, that was fun. And it seems genuine. It seems like he really did enjoy playing with his old buddies once again. One more time, that spark that came alive in the beginning when Layne screwed up and said, "Oh, fuck." It comes back. He stands up in front of the crowd and he says, "I wish I could just hug you all, but I'm not gonna." He laughs and smiles as he leaves the stage. Alice in Chains Unplugged is more than just an album. It contains more than just songs with guitar, drums and bass, melodies and harmonies. It is a story, a tragic story about naive, confused, and scared young men uncertain of their future or their place in the world, uncertain if they even have a future. It tells of a young man who sought acceptance through his art, yet somehow, ultimately accepted and adored by fans worldwide, he never quite found his way in the world, out of the darkness that consumed him. Although he did a good job of concealing his anxieties, sometimes with comedy, sometimes with anger, he never quite found his place in his own mind. Ever so slowly, addiction moved in to consume him, and he succumbed to his self-imposed prison. When Layne's body was discovered, he'd been gone for 2 whole weeks. His 80-pound frame had withered and deteriorated into skeletal remains, sat upright on his couch, a video game paused on his TV. The police tried to stop his mother Nancy from entering his apartment, a modest home for a rich rock star off of University Way in Seattle's University District. They did not want her last photographic memory of her son to be in the condition he was in. Layne's mother insisted that she see with her own eyes how her son had met his end. Layne's stepfather pulled an officer aside and said in his ear, "It's not your decision. You cannot keep a mother away from her baby." With that, the officers reluctantly stepped aside and Nancy entered the home, walked over to the couch where Layne sat upright as if he'd just dozed off for a nap. No one knows exactly what all Nancy said to her boy that day as she sat and spoke to him. She told him she loved him. She told him she was sorry it had come to this. More than that, I cannot tell because I do not know. But as I sit here writing this sad conclusion to Layne Staley in the Alice in Chains era, I imagine in my mind any mother having to sit and speak with her deceased son knowing that he will never respond again. I think maybe she was in denial, as any parent would be, hoping against hope that it was all a bad dream, that this wasn't real, and when she woke, Layne would call her and he would say he was fine, that he loved her and he'd see her again soon. No parent should ever have to bury their child. It's just not natural. It shouldn't happen. But it does happen, especially when drugs are involved. The happiest anyone ever is in their lives is as a kid, when your imagination has not been clouded by the day-to-day rigor of paying bills, and sugar can still get you buzzed. Try to recall a memory within your mind, a happy memory, when you were a child running around with your friends or your siblings. Perhaps playing basketball or sliding down a sled at a park, swinging on a swing, and ask yourself, did you take drugs then? The answer is no. Neither do you need them now. However, if you've fallen victim to these pharmaceutical companies' marketing, if you took that bait and you're stuck in a vicious cycle of addiction, you need to get help. Below, you will find links that you can click on to start that process of getting back to the days when you were a kid and you were happy without the crutch of a pill or a powder. There is one more thing that Nancy said to Layne on that terrible day, April 5th, 2002. She said, "Go to Demre. She's waiting for you." Thanks for listening to my Alice in Chains review. I hope you liked it. If you'd like to see more in the future, please hit the subscribe button and leave me a like so this gets shared with more people. Bye-bye.